It's 9 p.m. in Lagos, Nigeria, 10 p.m. in Johannesburg, South Africa, and 11 p.m. in Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome to the New Central TV studios, reaching you live from Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Sulaiman. Our headlines for this hour. The federal government of Nigeria rearrests leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. 2 protesters die after clash with security forces in Ghana's ASHANTI region. Southern African Development Community to raise $12 million for counter-terrorism in Mozambique. Details shortly. Well, news coming out of Nigeria has it that Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, a group that wants to form a breakaway Biafra state in eastern Nigeria, has been arrested. He appeared before a federal high court in Abuja today. Nigeria's Attorney General, Abubakar Malami, says Kanu was arrested on Sunday with the help of Interpol. He has been repatriated to Nigeria, where he will appear in court. The IPOB leader, whose group is proscribed, is a terrorist organization by Nigerian authorities. He fled the country in 2017 and is facing charges of treasonable felony. IPOB established an armed wing, the Eastern Security Network, last year, and authorities say the group has been responsible for a number of attacks on police stations and other public properties in southern Nigeria.
Leader of the proscribed secessionist indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, has, for your information, been intercepted through the collaborative efforts of the Nigerian intelligence and security services. He has been brought back to Nigeria in order to continue facing trial after disappearing while on bail regarding 11-count charge against him. Recent steps taken by the federal government saw to the interception of the fugitive Kanu on Sunday, the 27th day of June 2021. Kanu is as at now being produced before Federal High Court in continuation of hearing of his case in respect of which he has evaded and indeed jumped bail.
In the meantime, counsel to Nnamdi Kanu, Marshal Abubakar, has tasked Nigeria's federal government to ensure the rights of Kanu, as enshrined in the country's constitution, is respected.
Well, Nnamdi Kanu was brought to court today. We witnessed they bringing him to court today. Officials of the DSS and the Nigerian police, there was a combined team. He was brought to court today, and we're here where they brought him. I saw him in hood and handcuffs and leg chains. We're urging the government and urging the Nigerian states to ensure that all the rights of Mr. Nnamdi Kanu are respected as regards his trial. The trial will kickstart again starting from 26th of July 2021. We'll be here to see that all the paraphernalia, all the requirements of a fair trial, which is a sacred constitutional requirement entrenched in Section 36 of the Nigerian 1999 Constitution, are complied and strictly adhered to.
Well, joining me to unpack this latest development is a lawyer, Bashir Badru. Well, good to have you join me, Bashir. Now, what's the legal implication of the rearrest of Nnamdi Kanu?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much. A good development that he has been rearrested. I think that is one important thing that suspects, accused persons must understand, that you risk being becoming a fugitive when you jump bail. It is very, very dangerous. It is a slippery slope. Now, he's been rearrested, and the implication is simple. He will continue to suffer denial of bail. He will continue to suffer denial of bail because it took the federal government 3 or 4 good years, going to 4 years now, to get him back to face trials. And in between these periods, there have been a lot of security breaches commanded by him, ordered by him. And this will be enough to allow the government, in fact, to allow the public to say, no, you can't allow this guy to go again. Let him face his trial once and for all. The implication is simple. He has put himself in chains. He has lost the provision. Yes, I heard his lawyer saying that all the provisions of the Chapter 36, Section 36 should be accorded him. Yes, he will be accorded all these provisions, only to the extent that he will not be granted bail because he has lost the opportunity. Bail doesn't say go and
allow me come here quickly. Come in here, Bashir. Quickly here. Well, if someone jumps bail, does that imply that he's lost his right to get in bail a second time?
No. He has not lost his right. He has only lost the confidence to return such rights to him. He only told us that we gave him bail because we thought he is a good citizen, in court, and will obey the law and make himself available for trials. He has now dragged the trial for 3 full years. And you want us now, again, to admit him to bail and drag us for another 3 or 4 years again. When will the trial end?
So quickly here, do you see fresh charges coming on the case, on the pending case against Nnamdi Kanu?
Of course, I should see more because on his command, a lot of atrocities have been committed. Don't forget that one of the conditions of his bail is that he will not get involved in anything that may cause a breach of security. He complied with a single condition. Charges will definitely drop in. I'm expecting that.
Well, quickly, before I let you go, because we seem to be having a glitch to the connection to you, do you think that his rearrest will sort of put an end to the agitations of his group, IPOB?
It may and it may not. I think this is the time we should understand that agitators do not really necessarily need to go violent. You can agitate. It's a constitutional right. Yes, you can explore your constitutional right without taking up arms against constituted authority. So his rearrest may let it. We wait to see what will happen next.
Many thanks for unpacking this for us, Bashir Badru, a lawyer, following the development in Nigeria where the secessionist group Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the secessionist group Nnamdi Kanu, has been rearrested by the Nigerian government. News Central will keep a tab on that development. Now, still in West Africa, 2 protesters have succumbed to gunshot wounds after clashing with security forces in Ejura town in Ghana's Ashanti region. Tuesday's clash started when some residents threw stones at the security forces. Dozens of youth had gathered near where a famous social media activist was to be buried. Ibrahim Mohammed, 45 years old, was killed on Sunday. His supporters suspect he was targeted because of his criticism of the government. Another local media outlet shared pictures from the scene. We'll move to South Africa, where former President Jacob Zuma has been sentenced to 15 months in jail for failing to appear before the Judicial Commission on state capture in February this year. In a show of defiance earlier this year, Zuma refused to appear before the commission that is looking into public sector corruption despite an order handed down by the Constitutional Court. As a part of the fight back, the commission approached the court asking it to charge Zuma with contempt of court and sentence him to a direct jail term. Now, the sentence was handed down this morning. Zuma has now 5 days to present himself at the police station, failing which he would be arrested.
The Constitutional Court makes the following order. 1, the application for direct access is granted. 2, the Helen Suzman Foundation is admitted as amicus curiae. 3, it is declared that Mr. Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma is guilty of the crime of contempt of court for failure to comply with the order made by this court in Secretary of the Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture, corruption and fraud in the public sector, including organs of state, versus Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma. Mr. Jacob 4, Mr. Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma is sentenced to undergo 15 months imprisonment. 5, Mr. Jacob Gedleyihlekisa Zuma is ordered to submit himself to the South African Police at Nkandla Police Station or Johannesburg Central Police Station within 5 calendar days from the date of this order for the station commander or other officer.
Well, joining me this evening is Johannesburg-based attorney Matodzi Ranshi-Bilani from the TGR attorneys to unpack this judgment. Good to see you, Matodzi. You know, this is quite a significant judgment from the Constitutional Court. It's a first. So what type of message does this send out, especially to South Africa and other African countries?
Look, I mean, it's certainly been hailed as an example that in terms of the South African Constitution, no one is above the law. We're talking of a former president, head of state here, who's been sentenced to direct imprisonment. And this is being hailed, you know, as really an emphasis that our Constitution is alive and well.
You know, his spokesperson has been speaking, and he's, let me give you paraphrase some of the things he said. He said, well, the judgment is not supported by the full bench, suggesting that the decision was unconstitutional. Is there a basis to these claims?
Certainly not a legal basis. You know, it is common. This is a court made out of a total of 11 judges. There were 9 of them sitting presiding this case. None of them ruled that he must be jailed for 15 months. Only 2 of them objected for some technical reasons. Firstly, they were not objecting that he needed to be punished, but they seem to have held the view that the form of punishment can be different from what has been imposed. So to the extent that his spokespersons use that, you know, it's really a political play. From a legal point of view, it happens every other day where you've got a number of judges deciding a case, you will have 1 or 2 differing, and that's
you know, know that the former president's legal team will be very busy at the moment. But again, do you see a window of former President Zuma to evade, you know, this sentencing? Well, we'll seem to be having, a glitch to that connection. I hope we get that sorted. We've been speaking with Matodzi Ranshi-Bilani to unpack the development in South Africa. He seemed to be back. And Matodzi, I was asking if this development has given, if it does have any window for former President Jacob Zuma to avoid spending time in jail.
Well, it looks highly unlikely. The Constitutional Court is the highest court in the land. He's got no other alternative or other forum to, you know, to appeal it. So unless, of course, there's a medical emergency, you know, it seems set to go straight into prison.
So in that case, quickly help us here. Let's talk about the practicalities of the 15-month jail term. What are we likely to see happening to the former president?
Look, in terms of our law, he will be entitled to parole after about 1/4 of his full sentence. So in about 4 months, at least a minimum of 4 months or 3 weeks, 3 months and 3 weeks to be more precise. he will possibly be eligible to parole. That's governed in terms of the rules. If it's well behaved and the like, he might be entitled to be deemed to have finished his sentence within the next 3 to 4 months. But as a minimum, he will need to do at least 3 months' time.
Matsozi Ranchibalani from the TGR attorneys, many thanks for all your time. Now to east of the continent, a 2-day workshop on judicial reforms supported by the United Nations mission in South Sudan brought Sudan's judiciary and legal fraternity members to Juba, a critical element of the governance reforms stipulated in the revitalized agreement of 2018 is drafting a permanent constitution that would pave the way for elections in the world's youngest nation. Now, the United Nations mission supports a technical committee from the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs tasked with coordinating the government's efforts towards implementing the permanent constitution-making process, transitional justice and judicial reforms.
The permanent constitution-making process is a critical element of the governance reforms stipulated in the revitalized peace agreement that is expected to pave the way for elections at the end of the transitional period. It is quite symbolic that the drafting of a permanent constitution for South Sudan coincides with its 10th anniversary as an independent country.
These discussions provide an opportunity to reflect on how judicial reforms can help the constitution-making process and how this can improve the effectiveness of the judiciary in promoting sustainable economic development, judicial independence, and contribute eventually to the shaping of democracies that suit the changing political and legal environment.
Now, still in the region, United Nations humanitarians have expressed concern at the uncertain situation in Ethiopia's conflict-ravaged Tigray region, despite a ceasefire call from the government, highlighting the ongoing famine-like conditions there and the potential for disease outbreaks. After nearly 8 months of heavy fighting, the development follows Monday's reported entry into regional capital, Mekelle, forces loyal to the opposition. Meanwhile, World Health Organization spokesperson Tarik Jasarevic says the UN agency was taking measures to reinforce staff's security and well-being.
Developments inside Tigray, particularly in the capital Mekelle. While we are thankful that our staff are all safe and accounted for, we are concerned about the lack of communication, as both electrical power and phone networks are not functioning. This is making it even more difficult for our staff to work and deliver humanitarian assistance. We call for calm and restraint and appeal to all parties to the conflict to abide by international law, to protect civilians, including people who have been displaced, and to ensure that humanitarian workers can continue to exercise their duties and reach as many people as they can, which are in need of vital assistance right now.
We, from our side at WHO, we are taking measures to strengthen the security and well-being of our staff, but at the same time, we are continuing to deliver activities where it is possible to do so. And these includes activities in IDP camps around surveillance and access to essential health care and increasing the number of mobile health clinics. We are obviously concerned about potential for cholera, measles, and malaria outbreaks in the region. In addition, Tigray region is also located in a meningitis belt, and it is at the risk of a yellow fever outbreak.
Well, coming up on the news, health authorities in Uganda approve locally manufactured herbal medicine to treat COVID-19 patients. We'll tell you more when we return from this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the Southern African Development Community has set a $12 million budget for deploying an alert force in support of Mozambique. Antonio was speaking in the ambit of an extraordinary virtual meeting of the Council of Ministers of the SADC. The summit also approved the deployment of a force mission to help Mozambique combat terrorism and violent extremism in its northern region. The budget is subdivided into items and sources of financing, said the minister, adding that the origins of funding for its force are made up of a contingency fund and contributions from member states. To the Horn of Africa, presidential elections are scheduled to hold in Somalia on October this year. The incumbent president, Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, has been in office since February of 2017, and his term expired on February 8. Now, since then, the federal state presidents of Puntland and Jubaland and the Council of Presidential Candidates no longer recognize Mohamed as the president of Somalia, but he refuses to leave office despite public protests in Mogadishu, during which peaceful protesters have been shot and killed by government forces. Now, health authorities in Uganda have approved a locally manufactured herbal medicine to treat COVID-19 patients and other viral infections. The country's drug regulator, the National Drug Authority, NDA, says the product is formulated from herbal plants that have been traditionally used to alleviate symptoms of several diseases. It is, however, not a cure for COVID-19. NDA's decision comes a week after it warned the public against using Covidex, saying it had not been authorized. Meanwhile, more than 850,000 people have been vaccinated against COVID-19, prioritizing health workers, teachers, the elderly, and those with underlying health conditions. The Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, says Nigeria has no case of COVID-19 Delta variant, which was first detected in India. The NCDC Director General, Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, disclosed this at a national briefing of the COVID-19 Presidential Steering Committee in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. The variant, first detected in India, has been identified in at least 92 countries and is considered the fittest variant yet of the virus that causes COVID-19. Its enhanced ability to prey on the vulnerable, particularly in places with low vaccination rates. He said that the Delta variant was driving the resurgence of cases seen across other African countries.
Africa and in many of the other countries seeing a resurgence of cases at the moment is being driven by a new variant, now classified as the Delta variant, which, as you know, was first discovered in India. Many of the cases in South Africa are now ascribed to be caused by this variant. In Nigeria, we haven't found the Delta variant yet. We are looking. We had 40 new sequences last week, just to be sure that we are able to identify this should it occur. So we haven't found it yet. We keep looking. As long as we have access to the vaccine and we carry out the public health measures as much as possible, including the travel restrictions put in place by the Presidential Steering Committee, we should be able to mitigate the risk of this virus in Nigeria.
In the meantime, the federal government has explained why it is yet to resume flights to the United Arab Emirates. The Minister of Aviation in Nigeria, Senator Hadi Sirika, explained that the protocol appeared to be targeted only at Nigerians. He said that it was discriminatory and not backed up scientifically. He added that Dubai was insistent that all passengers intending to visit his country must use Emirates Airline or spend 2 weeks in the alternative carrier's country before entering Dubai. The minister dismissed insinuations that the continuous delay in the resumption of flights was ego-related.
Especially KLM withdrew their position and so sensed in what Nigeria presented that you can do tests 48 hours or 72 hours before you leave and do another test on arrival. Emirates at that time wanted us to do a test 48 hours before then come to airport. When we're cocksure we're negative, and it's only 48 hours, is not yet the incubation time, and do an antigen test, rapid test at the airport. And then fly 7 hours later and do another test in Dubai. And then follow to the, your hotel or your accommodation and do another test. That dragged on. And in the interest of our people, and I think cordial relationship, even though it was a commercial decision for the airline to take at any point in time, we ceded and accepted that, well, those tests that don't make scientific sense to us and that will continue to show negative, because they are within the incubation period, we'll continue to do them at the expense of our people and their monies.
Now, the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC, says the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Africa has reached over 5 million as of Tuesday afternoon. The Africa CDC, the specialized healthcare agency of the 55-member African Union, said the death toll from the pandemic stands at 141,829. At the same time, over 4.7 million patients across the continent have recovered from the disease. According to the Africa CDC, South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Ethiopia and Egypt are the countries with the most cases on the continent. South Africa has recorded the highest COVID-19 cases in Africa at 1,941,119, while Morocco's northern African country reported 529,895 cases of Tuesday afternoon. So ahead on the news, a heat wave in the U.S., Northwest and Western Canada shows no signs of abating. Details of this story and more when we return. Join us again. World Meteorological Organization WMO says a heat wave that's broken temperature records twice in 2 days in the U.S., Northwest and Western Canada shows no signs of abating. The WMO official noted that the all-time Canadian temperature record was broken on Sunday in Lytton, British Columbia, which recorded a high of 46.6 degrees Celsius. Such extreme temperatures pose a significant threat to people's health, agriculture and the environment. The region is not used to such heat, and many people do not have air conditioning.
And dangerous heat wave is baking northwestern United States of America and Western Canada. This is obviously a part of the world which is more accustomed to cool weather. Temperatures are likely to reach as high as around 45 degrees Celsius by day for perhaps 5 or more days. So that's, very long spell, and with extremely warm nights in between. The all-time Canadian record was broken on Sunday, with Lytton in the province of British Columbia recording 46.6 degrees Celsius. This smashed the previous record. Normally when you break a record, it's by a small margin. This smashed the previous record by a full 1.6 degrees Celsius. Less than 24 hours later, Lytton broke the record again. Yesterday, it reached 47.9 degrees Celsius on Monday in Lytton. This, to be underlined, it's in the province of British Columbia. It's home to the Rocky Mountains, the Glacier National Park, and yet we're seeing temperatures which are more typical of, of the Middle East or North Africa.
A new getaway has been opened in East Africa, and this came about in conjunction with Dubai Port World. Somaliland, a breakaway state from Somalia, opened a new terminal at BIAFRA Port, now seeking to be a primary trade gateway for landlocked Ethiopia. Now, the BIAFRA Port's new container terminal has an annual capacity of 500,000 20-foot equivalent units. Its second phase expansion is projected to increase its annual capacity up to 2 million TEUs from the current 150,000. Now, to look at Delero Balogun standing by to give us more from the business stories.
This is Business on NC Continental Prime. A report by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development shows that foreign direct investments into Africa fell by $7 billion in 2020, largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. FDI dipped to $40 billion at the end of 2020 compared to $47 billion at the end of 2019. Now, FDI to North Africa contracted by 25% to $10 billion from $14 billion in 2019, as most North African nations reported significant declines last year. Egypt, the top recipient of FDI on the continent, registered a 35% reduction to $5.9 billion in 2020. The Southern Africa region reported a 16% drop in FDI to $4.3 billion, while the West African region posted an 18% decrease to $9.8 billion. Foreign direct investment to East Africa dropped to $6.5 billion in 2020 from $7.7 billion in 2019. Ethiopia was the top recipient of FDI in East Africa, pulling in over a third of all investments into the region. Central Africa was the only region that booked an increase in FDI in 2020, mainly supported by increased inflows to the Republic of Congo. Foreign direct investment to the region rose to $9.2 billion from $8.9 billion in 2019. The Kenya Revenue Authority has said that it expects over 5 million taxpayers to file their annual income returns by June 30th, 2021, the deadline. Grace Wandera, the KRA's Marketing and Communication Deputy Commissioner, says an estimated 3.8 million Kenyans had filed their returns by June 20th. This was an increase of 20% compared to the 3.1 million over a similar period in 2020. Wandera attributes this growth to a robust iTax platform, adding that the authority still expects Kenyans to file their returns before the deadline expires. Now, foodstuff sellers in Nigeria say the hike in prices of raw consumables in the market is largely caused by insurgency and incessant clashes between farmers and herders in the north, northeast, and the middle belt. News Central's Lekan Onabanjo visited the Obalende market to find out how food inflation has affected both sellers and buyers.
Food, they say, gives life, and quality food intake provides nutrients for appreciable growth in the body and overall well-being. But when this basic need eludes the common man, what becomes of life itself? Amidst the battle for food security in several regions of the continent, one other issue is the constant dwindling buying power of consumers, occasioned by the incessant rise in the prices of foodstuff in the market. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's food inflation rate surged in March. It shot up to 22.95%, and in May, dipped a bit to 22.28% as the country's inflation hit a 4-year high by more than 18% and food prices going up by almost 23%.
It is not news anymore that the cost of living in Nigeria is on the ascendancy. The cost of foodstuffs in the market has gone astronomical. Now, what is the question and what is the reason for the rise in the cost of foodstuffs in the market? That is what we are here to find out.
Before it's 5,000, now it's 25,000 by basket. Plate is 300. Before it's 100 naira or 150.
Well, before, normally, by this time of the season, okra was supposed to be 50, 100. Now it's 100, 200.
A tuber of yam, which costs 1,000 naira, is now being sold for 1,500 naira. A small bottle of palm oil, once sold for 500 naira, is now 700 naira, while the big bottle now goes for 1,500 naira from 1,000 naira. For Nigerians who are struggling to survive the pang of the inflation and market price instability, it has been a tale of woes. Factors responsible for the inflation include price of fuel on the international market, weakening currency, foreign exchange liquidity shortages, and import restrictions on certain staple foods in an attempt to end rampant smuggling that have remained in place despite President Muhammadu Buhari reopening land borders in December. Africa's largest economy is growing, but finding it hard to feed business owners as more and more spend a lot on same quantity of food. Lekan Onabanjo, reporting for News Central Television.
Ghana is no longer on the global list of high-risk money laundering and terror financing countries. This comes after it enacted various legislation to criminalize money laundering and fight the crime. The Financial Action Task Force, which is the global money laundering and terrorist financing watchdog, announced this. The country was removed from the Financial Action Task Force's gray list after the global watchdog was satisfied that Ghana had adequately strengthened its governance policies against the two practices in line with international requirements. The International Monetary Fund's Executive Board has approved Sudan joining the Heavily Indebted Poor Countries Initiative. This paves the way for Sudan to reduce its debts, estimated at over $50 billion, which have prevented the country from resolving its worsening economic crisis. The fund's approval came after the Council decided that Sudan had reached the point of taking the required actions in accordance with the initiative. The IMF also recently announced that it had obtained financing pledges from 101 of its members, amounting to more than $1.415 billion for Sudan. These pledges will allow for comprehensive forgiveness of Sudan's external debts. And that's business right here on NC Continental Prime. I'm Tolulakwe Adileri Balogun. There's more news after this.
Well, quite a lot happening in the world of sports, and Onyechi is here for us, as always.
Thank you so very much, Sulai. In the world of sports, Zamalek have clinched the Egyptian Basketball Super League after beating Ittihad of Alexandria in Game 5, winning the final at 3-2. A few weeks ago, the Whites had lifted the inaugural Basketball Africa League over Tunisia's US Monastir before returning to compete in the domestic scene. Finishing second in the regular season, Zamalek had to beat Etisalat 3-1 and then Gaziri 3-1 to reach the finals to face Ittihad at Alexandria. Meanwhile, Ittihad had finished top of the group and secured an easy route to the final after beating El Gaish and Al Ahly 3-0. Still in basketball, meanwhile, Ugandan national women's basketball team has withdrawn from this year's Women African Basketball Championship qualifiers, Zone V, slated for July 12 and 17 in Kigali. The Federation of Ugandan Basketball Association, FUBA, confirmed this on Monday, citing the lack of funds. In a statement released by FUBA President Nasril Sharon Jogi, the Federation failed to get funds for the government to facilitate the Continental Showpiece. 2 weeks from now, Rwanda is expected to host the Women Afrobasket qualifiers. To the Tokyo Olympics, 61 athletes, 21 para-athletes have qualified to represent Nigeria at the delayed Olympics and Paralympics in Tokyo. Minister of Sports Sunday Dare has revealed. The minister noted that the recent qualification of Nigeria for the women's 4x100 meters, the women's 4x400 meters, and the 4x400 meters mixed relay was a significant achievement for the country as it awaits ratification from the FIT by the World Athletics. Nigeria had qualified for athletes across 9 sports for the Olympics and 22 athletes in 4 Paralympic Games events, including athletics, badminton, basketball, canoe sprint, gymnastics, rowing, taekwondo, table tennis, and wrestling. The Nigerian sport minister also added that to ensure hitch-free experience in Tokyo, the ministry had engaged 4 travel agencies to handle flight tickets for Team Nigeria and further disclosed that the athletes would depart in 2 batches to Japan. Of course, an arrangement had been finalized for 14-day pre-game training in the camp at Kizarazu. Egyptian side Pyramids FC have announced the sacking of Rodolfo Arubarina and the appointment of Takis Giannis as his replacement, just 2 days after the club's elimination from the Confederation of African Football, the Cup semis. Pyramids lost to Moroccan side, of course, Raja Casablanca 4-5 on penalties to miss out on a place in the final of the Africa's secondary club competition following a 0-0 aggregate draw on Sunday. Arubarina was named as the team's coach last November, replacing Croatian coach Ante Kakic. However, the team's results were well below the expectations of a big spending Emirate-owned club. They lie 10th in the league table with 34 points, 27 behind leaders Zamalek, although they still have 5 matches in hand. And finally, in sport, Tunisia's Untitled is through to the second round of Wimbledon after the victory over Sweden's Rebecca Pettersson. The 24th seed, who had to be the only African woman in the singles, saw her opponent in straight sets to edge out a comfortable 6-2, 6-1 win after the match was postponed from Monday because of rain. 26-year-old Untitled will face Venus Williams in the second round after 5-time Wimbledon champion defeated Romania's Michael Buzinescu. Earlier in June, Jabeur won her first WTA singles as she beat Russian's Daria Karatskina in the straight sets in the final of the Birmingham Classic. And there you have it, sport update at this time. I am Onyechi Obaro. Over to you now, Slay, for the rest of the news package.
Many thanks, Onyechi, and thanks for bringing Venus back on the news.
Of course, the 41-year-old had a big win today, and it was so good, even looking at the fact that we are seeing her have a 91st appearance at the World Showpiece.
Honestly, I'm excited seeing her come back strong. Anyway, thank you. See you again tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Now let me hand you over to News Center Chidima Wonsu for the latest in the world of entertainment.
Entertainment tonight. In West Africa, the main concern with digital marketing through social media influencers is that when not clearly labeled, might lead to transparency issues which can mislead followers and affect their consumption patterns and choices. From posting a picture with adverts to sharing, swiping up links in a series of stories, as well as sponsored content, social media platform has become a primary stage for influencers launching their careers. Many jurisdictions have thus started regulating this relatively new industry that thrives on marketing communications, mainly through the imposition of advertising restrictions and tax laws, thus raising transparency issues which can mislead followers and affect their consumption patterns and choices. Social media influencers now have to be aware of and comply with new regulations on one side, while they also consider the legal aspect of their business relationships. Brand owners now have several agreements which will ensure that their terms are respected.
If a client is trying to recruit the services of an influencer, it is best that they go through agencies that understand how social media works. Social media agencies can actually come up with metrics just by looking at engagement on the page. They'll be able to decide whether this influencer has what it takes to help amplify the message about the product that is being advertised.
And moving on to Ghana, Chairman of the National Film Authority and veteran actor David Donter has suggested some ways the art industry in the country can be improved. According to him, African films are lacking a lot, thus the reason why we are unable to get our films across the world. He mentioned that the routes are not dynamic enough and not functioning. He highlighted that most actors today are not trained, but only have the talent to act as compared to actors and actresses who used to act 10 years ago. He advised that we support the industry by giving out scholarships for interested persons to go outside to read and study arts, as they do to other sectors. He is hopeful that if all these are done together with some others, the art industry can and will be better than already is. In Uganda, the new regulations for 42-day lockdown announced by President Museveni has been gazetted, and many businesses must close their doors from Monday 28 June until at least 11 July. Markets and bazaars have also been banned, and no gatherings are allowed at conferences, exhibitions, and entertainment facilities. Hotels and lodges may only operate at 50% of capacity, and they may only offer room service and delivery of food. The new regulations state that schools and higher education institutions must be closed for contact classes from 30th June. Early childhood development centers can remain open. However, all gatherings are prohibited except for funerals, workplaces, and shopping. And finally, on entertainment, we move to East Africa, where Medem Africa, the first Pan-African digital music event dedicated to the continent's most vibrant music markets, will map the African music industries. The inaugural digital edition will feature Kenya as country of honor. This one-of-a-kind partnership will bring MIDEM Africa to more than 10 African cities across the continent through a series of dedicated events hosted by local Institut Français and Alliance Française. From 28th June to 1st July, MIDEM will embark on a 4-day journey that will map out the African music industries, highlight the most exciting trends and opportunities, and provide key insights and practical tools to foster networking and accelerate careers and businesses, amongst others. And that's it on entertainment news. Until next time, I am Chidima Nwosu.
I wanted a bit of that music anyway, if you ask. Well, anyway, cloudy, sunny, or is it going to be a wet day tomorrow? News Central Weather Desk has more information on the weather for tomorrow. And as all others are, but before we go, let's remind you of our top stories. The federal government of Nigeria have rearrested the leader of proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. 2 protesters have died after a clash with security forces in Ghana's Ashanti region. And finally, we told you that the Southern African Development Community will raise $12 million for counter-terrorism in Mozambique. Now, you follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can also download our mobile app in the App Store and Play Store. You can also watch News Central live on Star Times, Channel 274, Avio TV, Channel 23, Vision 247, Free TV, as well as on YouTube. I'm Sulaiman. Thanks for watching.